in his main deck. So black-white controlling deck, a lot of the same elements as mono-black with Blood Baron and Elspeth, I'm assuming, trying to win the mirror match against other control decks.
A powerful start here from Mr. Decandio with a Thoughtseize. He's going to show us a hand of 2 swamps, a Temple of Deceit, Great Merchant, Devour Flesh, Desecration Demon, and Erebos in the main deck. A one-of for Mr. Flora.
And this is a hand right now where if Brennan has Pack Rat and a third land to go along with it, Dustin is in a ton of trouble.
Yeah, you just take the Devour Flesh, you resolve the Pack Rat, and it could be lights out, and he's going to take Devour Flesh. Boy, if that's not a signal. Well, Temple's going to start things off for Flora. He did draw a Hero's Downfall, but that's one turn too slow to take care of your rat problem. So Decandio is going to untap. He's going to take a draw. It's a Desecration Demon, but the more important thing here is does he have the turn 2 Pack of Rats?
It appears that he does have a Pack Rat, and he doesn't have a third lane that comes into play untapped, but we've gone down this road, so we might as well play our Pack Rat here. Additionally, he could just draw a third land off the top and start getting it rolling.
So this is super interesting. This is one of the things I actually love about this format. Is I saw the Hollow Fountain in his hand. I'm like, do we have the wrong deck list? What's happening? No, that's right. It's white to allow him to cast his white cards. His Pack Rat's going to come in the red zone. But it's also blue to allow him to cast Nightveil Spectre.
Yes.
Because he's going to play an Orzhov Guildgate. So no Pack Rat activation. The third land is not going to play untapped. Flora does have a Hero's Downfall in his hand. But now the big question is, do I Hero's Downfall your Pack Rat? Or do I just make another one of my own?
We will find out momentarily.
I think you're just supposed to make another one.
Yeah, I feel, once you get out in front with the Pack Rat activations, your opponent's Pack Rat is so much less powerful because it can't block profitably that the first order of business is just making some rats.
Well, as V. Mauschwitz would say, you just make a Pack Rat. We'll see. But what Flora decides to do is Decandio is going to draw a card. He draws a copy of Last Breath. A good card in this deck and in this format, but not great in this particular situation. He does have Nightveil Spectre in his hand as well.
And really getting paid off for having the Hallow Fountain, too, if Nightveil Spectre is in hand.
Yeah. I know that at Pro Tour Gatecrash, or excuse me, at Pro Tour Dragon's Maze, when the Boros set that you played, you had Stomping Ground or something like that in your deck? So
we had bridging duels for Stomping Ground was a mountain that could cast Dry Militant, and Temple Garden was a plains that could cast Burning Tremissary.
Yeah,
so we had 8 duels to bridge hybrid mana cards.
Hero's Downfall is going to take care of the Nightveil Spectre. So you see that Decandio decided, I'm not going to make a Pack Rat, and Flora said, I'm not going to make one either. So what's going on between these two mono-black players? Now 2 mana in the main phase, and now here's Devour Flesh to take care of this one. But now this opens up Decandio to be able to kill the other Pack Rat. So maybe they didn't get the memo.
Well, here's the thing. I'm thinking about this now. It's possible because of that Hallowed Fountain, Dustin is suspicious of Detention Sphere.
Okay.
And it was unwilling to just go all in on his Pack Rat.
Okay, all right.
So it's possible that could have thrown him off the scent a little bit.
Maybe he thinks he's against maybe like an Esper mid-range deck
with
main deck Pack Rats. Okay. Desecration Demon here from Flora. So now they've both got the 6/6 flyer in play as Decandio's going to draw a card again. He's got Last Breath. He's got Hero's Downfall. He could actually kill both creatures that in play, or he could just deploy another 6/6. And there is the Hero's Downfall. There's the Last Breath. And now it's fun time with 6/6. So maybe that one Hollow Fountain changed everything.
I'm not positive, but I thought about this. If I was in Dustin's seat, how confident would I be that there were 0 Detention Spheres in my opponent's list based on those lands?
Or Supreme Verdict, too.
Right.
Well, there's a Nightveil Spectre, and there's a Swamp Pass. The turn back will Flora. Decandio's going to draw a card. It says Trigger, Deso, coming across. 6 more, going to put Flora down to 11, and now a Blood Baron of Escopa. And now Flora's got to be wondering, okay, so what deck are you? Why is there a Hollow Fountain out there? But what we know, just like you guys at home, is this just something that helps bridge the gap to be able to cast both Last Breath and Nightveil Spectre. It is really, really creative and good deck building as Nightveil Spectre is going to come across, turn over a swamp. But one thing that Decandio knows about Flora's deck is he's mono-black.
Yes.
Okay. There's no tomfoolery or chicanery going on over here. He is mono-black.
And if you look over at Brennan's graveyard and board right now, this is a guy who came prepared to beat mono-black.
I can only imagine such. I mean, his board right now is quite good. He's got main deck Last Breath. He's got main deck Blood Barons. And when we do get to that sideboard, I bet he's even got more fun.
Yeah.
See, Flora is going to cast a Hero's Downfall, take care of the 6/6. Now he's on the search for a Devour Flesh to get the Blood Baron off the board, but there's a Mutavault in play. Blood Baron going to come across for 4. Decandio is going to move up to 17. Flora's going to move down to 7. It's time to deploy another 6/6 flyer for Decandio before passing the turn back. Flora going to untap. He'll take a draw. He finds a Pack Rat. He's got an Erebos and a Grey Merchant over there as well, but those aren't going to do a lot in this current situation.
Yeah, I mean, he's without an answer to Blood Baron. Realistically, he's not going to be able to answer it. His only, way to proceed here is by trying to drain out Brennan, which is just hard given how much, life Brennan is still working with.
Erebos is live now. There is a 5 Devotion, 3 from the Spectre, 1 from the Pack Rat, and 1 from Erebos itself. However, all 3 of those things that are in play are black, so Blood Baron has free reign to come in, and we can shut off the Devotion if we'd like with this Hero's Downfall. Get the Spectre out of here, which means that Pack Rat is going to be on sacrifice duty in a moment, but Mutavault can get a little frisky right now because it knows that there won't be any blockers for it. So attack here for 6 by Decandio is going to put Flora down to 1. Decandio is not going to gain any life because Erebos is in play, so he's going to stay steady at 17. And as Flora's going to take one more draw step here, draws a Hero's Downfall, but that's not going to help against problem number 1, which is Blood Baron.
He can cast a Grey Merchant and gain 3, but then it only gets him to 4, which doesn't answer Blood Baron, and that's a wrap.
So Dustin Flora is going to concede game number 1 to Brennan Decandio with his interesting Orzhov mid-range deck. Again, we saw this deck win Grand Prix Dallas, but that wasn't really the talk of the tournament. This isn't the first time we've seen this happen, where actually people are more interested in a different deck from the top 8 than what actually won, because Huey Jensen got second place that tournament with blue-white control with Elixir and no win conditions and all that stuff, and that's the deck that people remember from that tournament. People don't even remember that, for the most part, that Ben Stark top 4 that tournament with the Orzhov aggro deck.
Yep.
It's like it didn't even happen. And we haven't really seen it translate over to our tournaments, where black-white Orzhov mid-range sees a lot of play, but we sure as heck do see a lot of blue-white control.
It is interesting how the narrative of a tournament can mean that the most memorable deck that gets taken away is not necessarily the one that won the deck, or the one won the tournament rather, or the most populous one from the top 8 or what have you. The combination of it being a Hall of Famer and sort of the weirdness of the deck makes it more resonant than actually the winning deck in some ways. So it's curious how that plays out sometimes.
It's really crazy to think that, just thinking about it right now, when I think of Grand Prix Dallas, I think of 2 things. First thing I think of Huey Jensen getting second place, not winning the tournament, getting second with blue-white control with Elixir and like 1 Elspeth and no win conditions. Then I think of the black-white control deck getting winning. I almost said it wrong. Winning the tournament, and I don't even remember really that Ben Stark with his Orzhov aggro deck kind of crushed the tournament.
Yeah.
With his splash for Zathar Necromancer and company, and no one even really talks about it. Just kind of crazy, as you mentioned. As we're going to take a look at the sideboards here, we'll start with Flora's, which I have in front of me, and then we'll kind of unveil with what Decandio is doing. So Flora's got, not the first time I've run these off, 3 Lifebane Zombies, 4 copies of Dark Betrayal, 4 Duress, 3 Pharika Cures, and an Erebos. Now, in Turtenwald's list, he's got 3 Erebos in his sideboard. Flora's only got 1, but he also has 1 in his main deck. Turtenwald plays 2 Pharika Cure main, 2 board. Flora has 1 Pharika Cure main, and he has the other 3 in the sideboard. At the end of the day, 4 Dark Betrayal are the things that are important here, and all 4 of those are going to come in for what Flora feels like he needs the sideboard out, because I think he's got a better idea of what he's playing against now, which is maybe just an Orzhov deck that kind of threw him off a little bit.
Right. On the other side, we have 2 copies of Dark Betrayal and an additional Last Breath that I believe are going to be coming in. He has a Sin Collector and 3 copies of Obsidat. I'm not sure if he necessarily wants Obsidat in this matchup because, there's Dark Betrayal and Hero's Downfall. It's answerable, but I could imagine a game plan where Brennan brings in his additional Duresses and Sin Collector to try to tag removal and then win with Obsidat, because Obsidat's incredibly powerful if left unchecked. He also can supplement that with Blood Baron as well. So I think the discard spells are pretty good for Brennan to have access to, because Dustin's answers to Blood Baron are fairly limited to begin with. So removing the Devour Flesh or whatever he may have to stop a Blood Baron is already good. And then he can supplement that with Obsidat potentially if he wants to as well.
Talk about a card that hasn't seen a lot of play recently. That's super powerful.
Esper Humans made access of it,
yeah,
made use of it.
That's really about it. Poor Obsidat, where did you go?
Well, it's competing with the same decks and the same mana slot as Blood Baron, and Blood Baron is so powerful against mono black currently, and Boros as well, which was a deck for a while. That it's not too surprising to see it fall off the radar. I do think that if red green monsters becomes more prevalent, or similar decks, basically decks that either don't care about pro black or pro white, or decks that contain Mizium mortars in them, if those decks start becoming more prevalent, I think you're going to start seeing more op stats.
I would welcome it back. I like that card.
It's really good.
Powerful card, fun to watch and play. Weaving in and out of play. I like it a lot.
Powerful and flavorful.
Yeah.
But very similar to Blood Baron, and right now Blood Baron's text box is quite good.
It's a touch more relevant.
Yes.
I think you could say. Now don't forget, my friends, at SCG Live, hashtag SCGORL for your tweets, as we are in round number 4 of 10 here in Orlando, Florida. No, for you people at home, there are no tsunamis or hurricanes that we know of. We'll be able to fly out safely on Monday. Because, see, what I'm not going to do this weekend is I'm not going to taunt Mother Nature.
Yeah, I learned my lesson as well. We were a little chatty when it seemed like the snowstorm had been grossly exaggerated. It turns out that was not the case, the way that things played out.
Sometimes you're wrong.
Yes.
Sometimes you're wrong. Sometimes it's a real storm. So, that's a thing. You learn from your mistakes in life.
Right.
That's what happens. So please, Mother Nature, no hurricane or tsunami. We would like to fly home.
No floods. No
I know what else can happen down here.
alligator attack.
That could happen. You're right. I hadn't considered the fact that crocodiles and alligators could just come walking through that door at any moment. See, both players are going to take a look at their 7 cards here. Again, Decandio is going to be on the draw pick. That's because he won game number 1. Looks like Flora is happy with his hand. A little battle of the black decks here.
Looks like Brennan's looking at some Mutavaults and some Swamps, so possibly he's missing white mana.
Looks like he is going to keep it, so we're about to be underway. Smells like a Thoughtseize, yeah. See exactly what you were thinking about. You see double Swamp, double Mutavault, double Dark Betrayal, and a Thoughtseize. I think this hand is quite good.
Yeah, I wouldn't have. Maybe he's thinking for the sake of thinking or for potentially bluffing, but this is a very solid hand.
Really in, however, Thoughtseize doesn't really care if you're thinking.
Right.
I'm going to find out what you were thinking about. Thank you very much. If you're Flora, I feel like you probably take the Thoughtseize because everything else is redundant here. Obviously, you don't know all the contents in his hand, but I feel like he probably takes Thoughtseize, yeah, because that's the best card there. Now he just has to worry about 2 Dark Betrayals, which, given that you know those are there, you can probably sequence your threats in such a way that they don't matter all that much, as Decandio did to draw. He got the Shrine for the turn, but he's going to conceal that information for now.
I would have considered playing the Mutavault because it's possible you just want to attack on the second turn, but playing the Swamp is also reasonable.
Yeah. The other thing, too, though, is if he does play the Mutavault on turn 1, makes it so you won't be able to play Nightveil Spectre on turn 3.
A reasonable point.
I wonder if he's going to play. I actually kind of want to see what land he's going to play. So now he's turning himself off from actually being able to cast Spectre now. So maybe he sequences lands poorly there, maybe not. And he's still trying to conceal the fact that he has drawn a white source in Godless Shrine. But how much is it worth to actually keep concealing that information? Because chances are you're probably going to have to play it untapped at some point now, as Underworld Connection is going to come down for Flora. There's an Elspeth off the top. That's an interesting draw.
Well, I think for the time being, you just want to keep adding these Mutavaults.
Now Mutavault's going to come across here for 2. Swamp available, of course, for the Dark Betrayal, past the turn back. This is going to be fun to watch, see if the way that he sequences lands in this game comes back to hurt him or not.
Yeah. It's curious because Dustin knows for the time being that his creatures are shut off from being productive because of those 2 Dark Betrayals. So he kind of has to try to find a different path. And he's also under some amount of pressure from these Mutavaults as well. So usually the person with the card drawer, in this case Underworld Connections, is favored. But Dustin, could get actually out-tempoed out of this game potentially.
So you see Flora's going to play a land. He's got Underworld Connections online. He's got an Erebos that he wants to get deployed. He's only 2 Devotion away from that, of course, because Connections will generate 2 and Erebos itself will generate 1. Can't Dark Betrayal that, so Brennan's going to have to untap and take a draw here. He draws a Swamp. Again, there's a Godless Shrine. There's an Elspeth. There's 2 copies of Dark Betrayal. There's an additional Mutavault, I believe, in his hand as well right now.
You can tell, it's going to be actually hard for Dustin to keep Devotion on his Erebos online for the time being because of, again, the 2 Dark Betrayals in Brennan's hand. So
the other thing here, too, and, when you said it a couple weeks back, I was kind of blown away by saying that Mutavault is arguably the second most powerful card in the format.
Oh, I think it's number 1.
Oh, yeah, sorry. Okay, you think it's number 1. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, this is a display on why the card's so good.
Yep. Sometimes you need mana and sometimes you need spells, and it's both. So that's a really powerful thing.
You know, some would argue that Thoughtseize is the more powerful card, but again, I think you're just, just talking for the sake of talking at that point. At the end of the day, Mutavault is putting on display right now, and it is really changing the way that Flora has to play this game. Imagine if those were just lands. Erebos, you'd be at 20. You could do whatever you want.
And Dustin picked up a Grey Merchant this turn, which is the best draw, basically, as it gives him a bunch of light to play with. It allows him to hit Brennan this turn with Erebos, bleeds out a removal spell while still getting value, and undoes a lot of that Mutavault damage as well. So,
a really good turn there from Flora, as Decandio is going to draw a card. He draws a Temple of Silence for the turn.
Well, this now opens him up to casting Elspeth next turn, kind of out of nowhere from Dustin's perspective.
So now there's a Temple. Maybe it makes it seem like, finally drew my White Source. It took me forever. Even though I think we know that's not actually the truth.
And Elspeth also capable of running away with the game unchecked.
But also, don't forget now, Patrick, that Goblet Shrine, assuming he needs to play an Elspeth next turn, that represents 2 points of damage.
Yep. Well, the only opportunity that he had was basically the turn he drew it or the turn after. Because on turn 3, he wanted to play his second Mutavault, so he could attack with both Mutavaults the following turn. On the 4th turn, he played a Swamp and just hit with 2 Mutavaults. So he hasn't had the opportunity to do this every single turn of the game. It was basically the turn that he drew it and the turn right after, and decided that the information was more valuable. But yes, he is going to have to pay 2 life now for that decision.
Dark Betrayal takes care of the Grey Merchant. Attack from Mutavault is going to put Flora down to 15, but most importantly, Erebos is currently off. Flora going to go down to 14, drawing a card off of the connection, draws a Devour Flesh. Has a couple copies of Dark Betrayal in his hand.
But Dark Betrayal might not do very much about this Elspeth.
So let's see what Mr. Flora wants to do on his turn. He knows that Decandio has a Dark Betrayal in his hand. He knows about that. And he's got to, you have to think, okay, I have to throw something into the fire here to get the Dark Betrayal out of your hand eventually. Is now the perfect time to be doing that? Maybe. And he decides, no, it's not.
You could just draw cards with Erebos and try to pick a better spot to overwhelm his removal.
Desecration Demon, the card that is drawn here for Decandio. See how that changes things. Does he have to actually play the Godless Shrine in Elspeth now? Maybe yes, maybe no.
I think the odds that a random creature here is good is just so low. What could be in Dustin's hand?
Yeah.
It's got to be the idea that your Desecration Demon is good here. Seems unlikely to me. Unless he's really committed to just not taking that damage because he's worried about Grey Merchant or some such.
I think he is committed to not taking that damage. You see the play he's going to make. Gets Desecration Demon. Godless Shrine pass. Still have Dark Betrayal up. Flora going to cast maybe a Dark Betrayal of his own, but he's going to start by paying 2 life to draw a card. Draws a Pack Rat. We'll see if he wants to go a little bit deeper or cast Betrayal. He says cast Betrayal. Get your 6/6 flyer out of here. Untap all these lands. Take a draw step.
And the problem that I have with that sequence from Brennan there is that you are so behind in terms of cards at this point that it's hard to imagine winning without Elspeth just carrying the day. And he's opening himself up to Dustin finding a Thoughtseize or a Duress here and taking the Elspeth. So I think last turn I would have just taken the 2 damage and just getting Elspeth into play.
Now here's a Pack Rat to start making things very difficult. Now Devotion count right now again is at 4. 2 from the connections, 1 from Pack Rat, 1 from Erebos. Now when you do make a Pack Rat token, it does have a casting cost of a colorless and a black, so that'll add to the 5th Devotion count. See how Flora wants to use Pack Rat in this situation. He could also just deploy a Nightveil Spectre, but then he wouldn't be able to leave Dark Betrayal up, so there are some real decisions to be had here. And now there's Dark Betrayal targeting the Pack Rat. By Decandio, does Flora want to discard one of those spells in his hand for Pack Rat? And he says, I do. He's going to discard a Nightveil Spectre. Okay. So Decandio untaps immediately. I think he drew a Blood Baron of a Scopa for the turn.
Dustin does have an answer in hand to Devour Flesh, but no answer currently to Elspeth.
However, Mutavaults. Mutavaults, making Devour Flesh poor. So now here comes the Blood Baron.
Brennan with protection.
So now he's going to draw a card. Thoughtseize the draw. The card that you were scared of, actually. Could have shown up there to take care of the Elspeth, but doesn't do it. So now Flora's going to untap. He's got a pack rat. He can make more pack rats. He's got an Erebos, but it's not a good attacker.
And keep in mind that Blood Baron's losing a little bit of steam in all of this because life gain is shut off here. So Brennan's still quite under the gun here, even though he has one of his better cards in play.
We're in a very interesting board state right now, one that I don't think I've ever actually seen be in a match that I've covered here.
I haven't seen too many Erebos going long style games.
Yeah, me either. So Nightfell Spectre's going to come in. Devotion is on for Erebos. I'm just going to pass the turn back here, representing a pack red activation, can block with Mutavault, draw a card with Underworld Connections. There's a lot of different things that Flora can do this turn. And if you're Decandio, you got to tread pretty lightly.
Yes. A lot of pressure in play on Dustin's side of the table. But Brennan is kind of getting squeezed from all angles. It's not clear he's favored in a short game right now because of Erebos and Nightveil Spectre and Pack Rat generating so much power. Also not clear he's favored in a long game because Dustin has so much card drawing.
Thoughtseize is going to knock Decandio down to 8. Devour Flesh, Thoughtseize, and Dark Patrol. He's going to take Devour Flesh immediately, and I like that because one of the things that we could have seen happen in this game is Flora Devour Fleshes himself to gain a bunch of life back. That's not an option now anymore. So now Brennan's going to attack with this Blood Baron, which, yes, he can't gain any life from because Erebos is in play, but the 4 damage that it's dealing is actually quite relevant here, so we'll see what happens.
Yeah, Brennan's in a spot right now where he's just trying to have Blood Baron unchecked and chump block with Elspeth enough to barely squeeze the game out here.
So there is your 6-mana Planeswalker. Soldier tokens are going to come into play. Again, there's a Dark Betrayal and a Thoughtseize over there. Thoughtseize, very irrelevant at this point. Soldiers will be joining us, and then it's just one Dark Betrayal, which has no targets.
Yeah, I feel like we're just, at this point, Dustin's going to be spending his mana just making rats and activating Mutavault.
Yep. So there's 3 soldiers to play defense for Decandio and his 8 life. Pack Rat activation on the end step, discarding that irrelevant Thoughtseize. We know that Flora has a Dark Betrayal. He draws a Swamp. We'll see if a land adds anything to the equation, and more importantly, does he want to draw any cards with Underworld Connections, and how does he want to attack?
And he has to be wary of the 3 Mutavaults in play as well on Brennan's side. So,
how far can he move in is the question.
Well, on board, he would need only 2 Mutavaults to connect. But he can attack with everything and leave enough back to block through Pack Rats.
Yeah, I mean, is this a situation where Flora just activates his Mutavault and gets in with everybody? Is that profitable?
He's going to go down this road. You can also find Gray Merchant. That's another path he can take as well.
It's true. Blood Baron. But his Scryland is blue-black. It's not black-white. So that won't be coming in here for Flora. He's going to draw a card. He's going to go to 6.
Yeah, so I think Dustin's just on the plan here to try to find a Gray Merchant.
I believe that was a Hero's Downfall off the top, if my eyes are not mistaken. And if that's the case, that's one heck of a top deck. He's going to pass the turn back. So let's see what Decandio can do here. I think Flora does have a Hero's Downfall. Curious why he didn't just cast that on his turn.
His plan might be just try to win with an unchecked rat.
Okay.
It still feels like removing an Elspeth has to be better than an additional rat here, since it creates 3 blockers.
Yeah. See, like total 6-6 here in this match. Will Flora activate Mutavault to block the Blood Baron? How much does he actually care about this Blood Baron coming across? Is he okay with going to 2? Now, one of the things about this Orzhov mid-range deck is that they oftentimes cut Gray Merchant to fit in Blood Baron. That doesn't mean that's always the case, but in most circumstances, that's how they've made that slot available. It really depends on how well-informed Dustin Flora is on the decks, as he's going to activate Mutavault. He's going to block, and we'll see some mana get floated here.
Yeah, we might be Heroes Downfalling inside of combat here.
I would like that play a lot.
He's just going to let it go.
So So now 3 more soldier tokens are going to come into play. There's a Temple of Silence. Decandio is going to scry. He's face up on the table right now, my friends. No cards in hand, everything in the board. Of those things on the board, 6 soldier tokens and 3 mutavaults ready to block. It seems really tough to slog through all of this.
Yeah, we'll see. I believe if I understand what Dustin's trying to do here, it's just trying to find Gray Merchant, so no reason to really make a rat at this point, just try to find some cards with Erebus.
Going down to 2. Might be looking for either Gray Merchant or a Mutavault to jump block with.
Yep.
Give himself some time.
Well, at this point, he's facing, you know, lethal even if he finds Mutavault,
Yeah,
because
that's
the 1/1s
true.
are all going to kill him.
Thought sees the draw.
Still can pick up a card with connections here.
Down to 1. 1 is not none. Hero's Downfall. There's a land.
Protection from black still good against mono black decks. That has not changed.
Magic in its simplest form.
Yep. So you see a hand with 4 black terminates here. 1 more shot with a Night Veil Spectre.
There's a Swamp. We know that's not going to do it. You see the hand. Hero's Downfall, Connections, Thoughtseize, Dark Betrayal. None of those are going to get it done.
No.
Decandio. Don't know if you have to make a pretty large error on this particular turn, I think, for Flora to get another turn. Now, that being said, it's a very real possibility that he needs to play around Devour Flesh, Flora targeting himself. So even though I say, it's easy for us here in the booth and you guys at home to be like, yeah, he just attacks everything, or just attacks Blood Baron and he's dead. Duh. In reality, if he attacks with Blood Baron, and then Flora just says, all right, Devour Flesh myself, sacrifice my Erebos, gain a bunch of life, don't die, that's when things actually get a little more complicated. So firing up Mutavaults and attacking with everyone here is probably the better line, and that's what he's going to do, and that's going to do it. So Brennan Decandio is going to win the game and the match. Orzhov mid-range, 4-0.
And we have now Mono Black Devotion as 0-8 on camera in games so far this weekend.
Yeah, games won by Mono Black, 0 on camera. 0.
We've had it in the booth 4 times.
Rough if you're a Mono Black fan.
So people are adapting.
Absolutely, and this is a good way to go about. Doing that. Where, this is kind of obvious. You get to splash and play Blood Baron. You got Last Breath, take care of Pack Rat, and Night Veil Spectre, and we've seen this deck again win a Grand Prix at the back end of last year. Grand Prix Dallas, where a very similar build won, but again, it hasn't really picked up very much, but was pretty impressive there.
Yeah, I mean that was the white cards made all the difference.
Yeah.
Blood Baron was very obviously influential in both games. Last Breath killed a Pack Rat. There's not a ton of Mono Black removal you can play to reliably kill Pack Rat on turn 2.
Mm-hmm.
So having Last Breath as an additional slot there, and I mean that was pretty convincing. And that was a game also where his opponent, the Mono Black player, had the card drawing edge. And we normally see in the Mono Black mirror match where that's the thing that matters.
Yep.
Everything trades, and so whoever has more cards wins. It's kind of the basics of it.
That's oftentimes what happens, yeah.
But Blood Baron and